Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If I can have your attention, I'd like to make an announcement. I am Gene Culpepper. I directed tonight's play. The circumstances surrounding our production are a little unusual. See, I was very flattered with Billy St. John, who wrote Murders in the Air, as you probably noticed during the program. Heir is spelled H-E-I-R. Murders in the Air. Get it? Yes. Well, as I was saying, I was very flattered when Mr. St. John contacted me and asked me to direct his play's premiere production. Actually, it was a work in progress, and he made changes and rewrites throughout the rehearsal period. While it was very exciting to be part of creating a brand new work, to tell the truth, it put quite the strain on me, the playwright, and the cast.
You got that right.
Hush, Noah. Actors should be unseen and unheard until the curtains open. Sorry about that. The cast and I are feeling a little nervous about tonight because, well, the play isn't quite finished. Oh, don't worry, we're going to go on. The show must go on, as somebody once said. Don't know who said it, but I'd love to get my hands around his neck. As I was saying, the play isn't quite finished. You see, it's a murder mystery, and most of the characters have great motives to kill. Well, you'll see who. The thing is, Mr. St. John couldn't make up his mind to which character should be the murderer. In fact, he wrote several different endings in which the various suspects were the murderer. We performed them all for him, and he still couldn't decide. As it got closer and closer to opening night, the tension in the air, that's A-I-R, grew so thick you could cut it with a knife. It got so bad that Mr. St. John had what I feel sure will prove to be a temporary breakdown. The reason he's not here with us tonight is because he is currently under heavy sedation in a very nice place with soft walls and lots of padding. Some people have all the luck. The cast and crew and I are here, though, and we're determined to provide an entertaining show for you even if it kills us. That's just a figure of speech, of course. This brings me to my main point of my being up here, to announce that you're going to have to help us. If you'll look in your program, you'll see that we've inserted a loose slip of paper, a ballot of sorts. As you watch the first act, you'll discover which characters have a motive to kill someone who will indeed be dead by the time the act ends. During intermission, we'll tally them quickly, and for the second act, we'll perform the scene that Mr. St. John wrote for the character that the majority of you chose as the murderer. At least, we hope that's what will happen. It got very confusing during rehearsal.
It's a wonder we didn't kill the playwright.
Quiet, Evan. Look, we might as well get started. I saved myself a seat there in the front row where I could follow along with the script and help out if things get a little shaky. Which they won't, but just in case. Are you ready, cast?
As ready as we're gonna be.
Then, let's do it. Places. Lights.
Just through that doorway. You mustn't startle him.
I'm sorry, Miss Withers, but you startled me.
My apologies, but I dare say a slight scare will do you no harm. However, a sudden shock to a man in his 90s and Mr. Starkweather's medical condition could prove fatal. Remember that, girl.
I will. I'm sorry, Miss Withers. This storm has made me a little edgy.
Yes, it is a tempestuous evening. I presume all the guests have been shown to their rooms?
Yes, well, all but Mr. Starkweather's grandson, Mr. Simon III. It's a long drive from his college in the storm, you know.
I do hope we can start without him. It's already past Mr. Starkweather's bedtime and he must get his sleep.
I assure you, Miss Withers, the room is spotlessly clean.
I certainly hope so. Mr. Starkweather's asthmatic condition makes the mere smell of dust potentially lethal.
I've served as Mr. Starkweather's housekeeper for many years before you came here, Miss Withers. I do not need you to tell me how to do my job. You brought the coffee?
It's right here on the table, Mrs. Trent.
Then go back to the kitchen and help Minerva with the rest of the refreshments.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Starkweather gave specific instructions that he wishes to have everyone present in their drawing room by 8 o'clock sharp. I'll ask Bensonhurst to fetch the guests from their rooms.
Mr. Starkweather will be ready. I'm coming, Mr. Starkweather!
I done got all the cars parked in the garages like you told me.
Oh, why waste my breath? You're dripping water all over the living room. I've told you 1,000,000 times that the servants never enter through the front door.
I reckon I forgot, Mr. Bensonhurst. Besides, it's raining out there.
I'm aware of that, and that looks as if it's raining in here as well, thanks to you.
You're welcome.
Go back the way you came and maneuver yourself around to the back door. Do you think you can handle that?
Well, I don't know, but I suppose I'm gonna have to find out.
When the last guest, young Mr. Simon, arrives, I'll summon you to park his car for him.
Sounds great. Till then, I'll sit by the stove and see if I can grow meals.
Don't be impertinent.
How can I be if I don't know what it means?
Just do as you're told. Go to the kitchen and wait there. Not that way. Have you forgotten already? I told you to use the back door.
No, but I was hoping you had.
That man is an idiot.
I heard that.
Where do you want me to put this one, Minerva?
On the coffee table. Careful with it.
I think everything is ready.
You think wrong. Put the cups on the saucer so all you have to do is pour the coffee.
Yes, ma'am.
The others are coming down. Miss Van Zandt informed me that she wishes the servant to be present as well.
He wants the servants here?
Precisely. Even Rufus. Had I been informed of that fact earlier, I would have ordered him to take a bath. He's been outside parking cars, so perhaps that will help.
If you ask me, notice a flood wouldn't help.
Be that as it may, I shall summon him and his strength.
Why would Mr. Starkweather want the servants to be in here?
I'll take out my crystal ball and let you know. Do you remember what I told you when you first started to work here?
Yes, ma'am. Do as you're told and don't ask questions.
Exactly. Stick to that.
Very well.
Oh dear, I never know what to wear on special occasions. I suppose Uncle Simon's inviting us here at a special occasion. Isn't it, Jordan?
I suppose so, especially since most of the time he treats us like lepers.
You think Simon treats us like jungle cats?
Not leopards, lepers. Oh, never mind. And don't worry, Mother. You look fine.
Oh, I thank you, son.
I'll tell you one thing. If we should ever inherit this mausoleum, the first thing we'll do is call up the Adams family and let them know it's on the market.
Counting chickens, are we?
Minerva, we didn't see you and your young, attractive helper there.
Nancy is a nice girl, and I mean for it to stay that way.
I'm sure I don't know what you mean.
I doubt that.
I don't understand.
I believe that. Miss Fiona, why don't you take a seat? I'll bring you some coffee.
Coffee? That sounds nice. It's a little damp in here.
That's because it's a lot damp out there. How do you take your...
Mother's likes hers black. I like mine sweet. I'll flavor it myself.
Whatever.
Oh, what lovely hors d'oeuvres. These are delicious.
Glad you like them.
You're looking very pretty tonight, Nancy.
Why, thank you, sir.
Sir, that makes me feel as old as great Uncle Simon himself. Please, call me Jordan.
She will call you Mr. Starkweather like a proper maid should. If anyone wants to call you another name, it'd be me. And you don't want to know which I'm thinking.
Oh, Minerva, you never change.
Neither do you. More's the pity. Now take a seat next to your mother.
Yes, Drill Sergeant.
My goodness, Kathy. I don't understand how y'all can stand being out here in the boonies, away from fine restaurants, movies, and shopping centers. Why, I just get so depressed I can sit down and read.
It's not that bad, Paula. I stay here during the week and go to my apartment in town most weekends.
I'm so relieved to hear that.
I worked for a larger corporation before Mr. Starkweather hired me as personal secretary. And believe me, this position is much nicer.
Well, look what we have here. 2 rays of sunshine to dispel the gloom. You look lovely, ladies.
I swear, Cousin Jordan, you are a rogue and a charmer.
Well, I certainly try my best. Won't you join us?
Why don't you take a seat over there? It'll be safer. We'll bring you some coffee.
Thank you, Minerva. I take mine black.
Load mine down, lots of cream and sugar. I must admit, I have an enormous sweet tooth.
Maybe that's what causes the corn syrup accent.
And how are you this evening, Cousin Fiona?
What? Oh, I'm fine. Thank you, Paula.
That's just peachy. I swear. I don't know why we don't see more of one another. Seems like the only time we get together is for something funeral.
Well, aren't all funerals for somebody?
Shame on you. Don't be morbid, Cousin Jordan. I'm glad this weekend is extending the rule. For once, no one is dead.
Not yet, anyways.
My new black dress.
Oh,
That's okay, honey. You didn't steal me.
what did you mean by that remark, Jordan?
Oh, nothing. It's just that when you first called us up here to start with your mansion, I had assumed that he had passed on.
You wish.
It was a natural assumption, of course. I mean, he is up in the years and in bad health. I was relieved to find out he was still alive.
Kathy, darling, why did Great Uncle Simon desire our presence this frightful evening?
Miss Van Zandt will go into the particulars, but I believe Mr. Starkweather wishes to discuss his will.
Really?
I'd appreciate it if you don't drool on the hors d'oeuvres.
Minerva, you misjudged me. I was excited, that's all.
Uh-huh.
Where is Cousin Simon? Shouldn't he be here too?
When I contacted him last week, he said he could make it. Apparently he's going to be late. If he's tried to call here tonight, he couldn't get through. The phones are down.
Well, if we're going to discuss the will, he should be here. After all, he is Great Uncle Simon's only grandchild.
Yeah, he'll probably get everything.
Excuse me a minute. Folks, I hate to interrupt. You guys are doing great. You really are. Folks, I suggested to Mr. St. John that these family relationships might be a bit confusing. He agreed and was going to write a scene that explained it all when he snapped like a rubber band. So I'll explain it to you. I think there might be a family tree in your program too. Here's the way it works. Simon Starkweather, the old billionaire who you'll meet shortly, married late in life and produced one son, Simon II. Simon II, in turn, married and produced one heir, Simon III, college student who was late for the gathering. The original Mrs. Starkweather, Simon II, and his wife are now deceased. Old Simon's older brother, Paul, had a daughter, Bella, who married Lucian Thompson, an Atlanta businessman, and they had Paula. Paul, his wife, Bella, and Lucian are now deceased. Old Simon's younger brother, John, married and produced Ezra, who married Fiona, and they had Jordan. This is Jordan, but you know that already. John, his wife, and Ezra are now deceased. I realize that's a lot of dead people, but if they had been included in the play too, it would have looked like a marching band wandered into the living room. Believe me, it was hard enough moving everybody about the stage as it was. At any rate, old Simon is Fiona's uncle by marriage, and is Jordan and Paula's great uncle. That makes Jordan, Paula, and young Simon cousins. Second or third cousins, I guess. I don't really understand how that works. Hope that clears things up for you. Sorry for the interruption. Carry on.
We haven't the foggiest notion where we are.
I'm not even sure who I am anymore.
Sorry. Resume with Evan and Casey's entrance. Nick, give them their entrance cue.
What is it?
We'll probably get everything.
Who will?
Your cousin Simon.
Oh. And you'll probably get everything.
I'm very pleased with your investigation. I'll be glad to recommend you to my other clients.
Just doing my job, Miss Van Zandt.
Good evening, everyone.
Now, I know we haven't met yet, but I've got a pretty good idea who you all must be. Mrs. Starkweather and her son Jordan, right?
That's right, Mr.
Davis. Call me Mike.
Nice to meet you. From what Miss Van Zandt just said, you must be some sort of investigator.
You got it, pal. Private kind.
I see.
Who is this nice young man here?
He's a detective, Mother.
A detective? How exciting! Do you know Jessica Fletcher?
No, ma'am. She's way out of my league. I do know who you two ladies must be, though.
If you're a private investigator, I'd be surprised if you didn't.
That accent settles it. You're Paula Thompson.
You're 100% correct. I can't deny I'm from the Deep South.
If you came from any deeper south, you'd live in Central America.
That leaves you to be Kathy Collins. It's nice to finally meet you in person.
Me too, Mike. Mike and I have corresponded by mail and fax for some time on Mr. Starkweather's behalf.
Is the seat taken? No? I'll park it here.
And I expect you to remain unobtrusive.
I sure will, as soon as I find a dictionary and look it up.
Just sit over there by the fire and keep quiet.
By the fire? Glad to. My backside's still kind of soggy.
Keep an eye on him.
So do my best.
If all is in readiness, Miss Van Zandt, I shall inform Mr. Starkweather.
Yes, thank you, Benson Harris.
There's coffee if anybody else wants some.
I could use some Minerva.
How do you take it?
In a cup. Like
Miss Van Zandt, I understand that Great Uncle Simon has called to see a talk to us about his will.
That is correct. Frankly, I did not think it was a good idea. Mr. Starkweather's health is precarious at best, and he doesn't need the excitement. I advised him to communicate with you by mail, but he insisted on summoning you to Starkweather Mansion. I only hope he doesn't live to regret that decision.
Miss Withers is bringing in Mr. Starkweather now.
Can I move now?
Here you are, Mr. Starkweather.
Go, go!
I'll be right here if you need me.
To think I was once surrounded by presidents and kings. Can my world have shrunk to this? A handful of relatives and a meager staff of hired help? Simon? Where's my grandson?
We presume he's on his way, Mr. Starkweather.
Can't wait for him. Not enough time anymore.
You're looking well this evening, Uncle Simon.
Are you blind, boy, or just a habitual liar?
I was only making pleasantries.
Save your breath. You've always been a smooth talker, Jordan. But that doesn't cut any ice with me. You're nothing but a greedy opportunist, boy. I ought to know. I was one myself at your age.
Then I guess it runs in the family.
You have a point. Well, Fiona, you look the same.
I do? Why, thank you, Uncle Simon.
It wasn't necessarily meant as a compliment.
Great Uncle Simon, you're just awful.
At my age and with my money, I can afford to say exactly what I think, and I do. And how's my little Georgia Peach?
Little old me, I'm just peachy, Uncle.
I am a farm. Would you like any coffee, Mr. Starkweather?
He mustn't have any. The caffeine could keep him awake, and it could affect his blood pressure. His medications already cause it to run a little high.
Apparently, I won't be having it, Minerva. You heard my keeper.
Yes, sir.
Everyone aspires to live to a ripe old age. And for what? To be kept alive by medicines and machines? To be prevented from enjoying so much of life's little pleasures, like a cup of coffee?
You mustn't excite yourself, Mr. Starkweather.
You see, I'm not even allowed to feel any strong emotions.
Well, that's a bummer.
You put it very succinctly, Rufus. Old age is a bummer. I could have searched my vocabulary extensively and never come up with such an apt description. Bummer.
Well, I'm glad you liked it.
According to my doctors, I won't have to remain a prisoner of this weak old body for much longer. There's only one thing I hate to leave behind. My money!
Well, you know what they say, Uncle. You can't take it with you.
Yes, that's what they say. So several years ago, I had Lois here draw up my will. I suppose you'd like to know how I provided for you, my heirs.
I, for one, listen, that I'm just a teensy bit curious.
A teensy bit, eh?
I'm afraid something like this would happen. Here, Mr. Starkweather, breathe deeply. See what you've done?
Me, I didn't...
Should somebody call an ambulance?
Yeah, the phones are dead. It's all right. He lost his breath. He just needs to breathe pure oxygen for a few moments.
Tell them.
Very well. This is the will Mr. Starkweather was referring to. As you know, he's been a phenomenally successful businessman for many years.
I'll say he's been on the cover of this a dozen times.
Well, I never read it.
He has the distinction of becoming one of the world's first billionaires.
It was nearly 20 years ago. I begged dear Ezra to ask his uncle for help on his business investments, but he was too proud.
Yeah, Dad had his pride. Lots of pride. Very little money.
If I may continue, Mr. Starkweather's fortune is now worth in the neighborhood of $50 billion.
If I'd have known that, I would ask for a raise.
I won't go into the details of the will, but it essentially bequeaths $1 million to each of his household staff. Mr. Bensonhurst, his butler, Mrs. Trent, his housekeeper, Minerva Walker, his cook, Miss Withers, his nurse, Nancy Pollard, his maid, and Rufus Jones, his handyman.
Forget the raise.
Oh, Mr. Starkweather, I had no idea.
The rest of the will states the money is to be divided equally among his surviving relatives. They are his grandson, Simon III, his niece, Fiona Starkweather, and her son, Jordan, who share 1/3, and his great-niece, Paula Thompson.
Well, isn't that nice?
I always knew you'd take care of us, Uncle.
I know you got mad and Mama married a Southern boy, great Uncle Simon, but you two must have agreed on one thing. Blood is thicker than water.
I'll bet you Miss Withers can tell you anything it is.
Now that I've informed you of the will's contents, I have another announcement to make. As of tomorrow, this will becomes invalid.
What does invalid mean?
It means no good.
I got a sister that's invalid.
She means we won't be getting the money, you fool.
Oh, I guess I won't be buying that big screen TV I was thinking about then.
Sit, you two, Lois.
Why'd you decide to disinherit us, Uncle?
Found a better use for my money, that's why. Oh, I don't cut you out entirely. Each of you in the old will get $50,000 per person.
50,000 out of 50 billion.
Lois advised me it would be a good idea to leave you a little something. That way, you'd be less likely to be able to contest my new will.
New will?
Yes. That's why I had Kathy here stay over these weekends at Starkweather Mansion to type it up, nice and legal for my signature. Mr. Davis, as a disinterested party, can witness the signing. Lois will file it at the courthouse come Monday.
Mr. Davis said he's a detective. What did you hire him to do?
Mr. Starkweather hired me to do an investigation on the quiet. For the past 6 months, I've flown to a dozen more foreign countries, meeting with some of the world's most brilliant scientists. I succeeded in finding one in Belgium, we'll call him Dr. X, who agreed in helping Mr. Starkweather do what he desires, which is to clone himself.
Oh my goodness.
That's insane.
What nonsense.
You must be kidding.
It's immoral.
I don't understand.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
The ones you said would be sent to specialists?
They were sent to specialists, Withers. Specialists in DNA.
I thought you were trying to find a cure.
I was. Not a cure for my various ailments, but a cure for dying, and I did find it.
Cloning?
Precisely. Through modern science, I shall live forever.
That's not right.
That's neither here nor there. Let the moralists and the politicians debate that question for decades to come. In the meantime, Dr. X, as Mr. Davis named him, will be creating a brand new me. Sit down, Withers. The lot of you seem displeased. Not, I suspect, because of the moral question, but because of your change in fortune. Too bad. Cloning is very expensive, especially considering the process I require must be done in absolute secrecy. But I will still have a sizable fortune left for the new me to inherit. No doubt, I will be the first person on Earth to become my own heir. Withers, my blood pressure.
Yes, Mr. Starkweather. If you'll excuse us, I have to take Mr. Starkweather's blood pressure.
Why don't you take it right here?
Mr. Starkweather's arms are too frail for me to get a reading from them. This is an outsized cuff, made to go around the patient's thigh. He can stand the pressure from the inflated cuff better there. Mr. Starkweather has had enough excitement for one evening. I shall put him to bed.
I guess that concludes our meeting, unless anyone has any questions.
I do. What the heck was that all about?
It's quite simple, Rufus. We were all going to get a fortune. But Uncle Simon decided to change his mind. Instead, he's going to clone himself.
What does clone mean?
It means to take some cells from one person's body and use them to create a duplicate of the original.
They can do that?
That's great! When the old Mr. Starkweather passes away, I'll get a job working for the new one.
The new Mr. Starkweather will have to be born and grow up. It goes against the laws of nature. How?
It has all been arranged. Once Dr. X has created the new life, the cells will be implanted into a host mother who will carry the child to term.
Host mother.
Who? Me? Why not? I'm young and healthy. I'll make a great mother for little Simon. How could you ever consider being a part of this travesty.
I'll be well compensated. Besides, have you ever known anyone else to give birth to a baby billionaire?
Uncle Simon's leaving his money to a baby?
In a manner of speaking, yes. The new will places Mr. Starkweather's fortune into a trust fund, which I'll administer. I'll release the money to pay Dr. X and his staff to perform the cloning procedure. After that, ample funds will be available to provide for Kathy's needs, as well as the child's upbringing and education. Once he's grown and properly trained to deal in high finance, the fortune will be turned over to him.
The kid will look, think, and act like Simon Starkweather. Theoretically, he could turn those billions into trillions by the time he's an old man.
But for what purpose? To leave it to another clone, then another and another? When will it end? When there's a Simon Starkweather with enough money and power to rule the world?
We didn't discuss it, but you might well be right.
I can't believe you condone such madness.
I can see why she would. Miss Van Zandt and the Collins girl would be living like billionaires themselves off Mr. Starkweather's money. Money that should have gone to us and his family. I guess you'd get pretty rich too since you're part of the scheme.
Not me. I did the job I was paid to do. I'll take my very generous check and go home. Quite frankly, I don't care if the boss's science fiction experiment works or not.
You should be ashamed. You should all be ashamed.
I believe you'd made your feelings quite clear, ladies. If you'll excuse us, I wish to speak with all the servants in the kitchen. I trust you'll ring if you need anything.
It might be kind of nice to hear the pitter-patter of little feet run around the house.
Oh, shut up!
Kathy and I will retire to my room. You might as well begin typing up the new will tonight. I'll direct you on how to put everything into the proper legal terms.
Sure, Lois, the sooner it's finished and signed, the better.
Hey, wait a minute. How come nobody asked me if I wanted to carry the baby? I can do it as well as she can.
You're Mr. Starkweather's blood kin, Paula. It wouldn't be proper.
I guess it would be kind of tacky.
Proper! You're worried about being proper. You're about to conduct an experiment that makes Frankenstein look like an amateur. And you're worried about being proper.
Cool it, kid. Before you burst a blood vessel. Mr. Starkweather's made up his mind, and I'm pretty sure what Simon says, people do.
Succinctly put, Mr. Davis. Kathy?
I'll go upstairs and pack. After I witness the signing of the new will, I'll have no reason to stick around. Good night.
We were robbed.
We were?
Yes, Mother. He dangled a fortune right in front of our noses and then snatched it away.
It was mean.
Mean? The man is a monster. Didn't you see the evil glint in his eye? He enjoyed pulling the rug right out from under us.
Well, at least he's leaving us 50,000.
Out of 50 billion. That's no more than tossing a dime to a beggar for him. And he's only doing it so he won't disinherit his new will.
Yeah.
I wish he'd die. I wish the old goat would drop dead tonight.
It would serve him right.
If Uncle Simon were to die tonight, then that means we'd get our money. Wouldn't we, my dears? Would anyone care for a game of bridge?
Penny for your thoughts? That's all I can afford to pay, for now.
Mr. Starkweather,
It's Jordan, remember? At least when Minerva the Dragon Lady isn't around.
I thought everyone had gone to bed.
I have, but I got up for a midnight snack.
I'll fix you something.
Wait, what are you doing up?
Mrs. Trent sent me in here to make sure the fire screen is properly closed so no sparks pop out onto the rug.
And burn Starkwood Mansion to the ground? Maybe that wouldn't be such a bad idea.
You shouldn't talk like that. You know Mr. Starkweather's an invalid. How could he?
You read my mind.
Jordan!
Ha! I got you to call me by my first name.
You mustn't even suggest such a thing. It's wicked.
And why should that surprise you? Everyone knows I'm the black sheep of the family. If it happened tonight, you'd have $1 million, and I'd have billions. Think of the good times we could have. Together.
Don't.
Admit it. It's a tempting thought, though.
No, it's not. It's a terrible idea.
Which part? Getting the money? Or you and me together?
The part about the money.
What about us?
Nancy! I thought you were going to help me with the dishes.
I wasn't there about that. I was just checking the patio door to make sure it's closed.
I see. And why are you in here? I gave him trouble one of these days.
Minerva, what are you doing with that knife?
Mincing onions.
At midnight?
I can't stand to have people see me cry. I thought I heard someone in here, so I came to check. If you're hungry, follow me. I'll get you something.
Yes, Minerva. Whatever you say, Minerva.
When you're done checking, come give me a hand.
Yes, ma'am.
Come on.
Rufus! Thought I heard someone come in.
It was just me.
So I see. Good grief, man. What are you doing with that axe?
It's like this. I remember chopping some wood for the fire earlier this afternoon, before it started raining. But I forgot to put the axe back in the shed. I've been dismembering things a lot lately. When it come to me where I left it, I figured I better bring it inside so it don't rust.
That's alright, but why bring it into the living room? Besides, how many times do I have to tell you to use the back door?
As many as you want, I ain't counting.
I swear, Rufus, you'll be the death of me yet. Go into the kitchen and get Miss Trent to give you a towel.
Why? I ain't wet. It quit raining.
I know, for the axe.
Oh, right.
The back door. If that man had a brain, he'd be dangerous.
I heard that.
Any for your thoughts?
Jordan, I just came down for a brush of fresh air. What are you doing up this late?
Munchies? Want one?
No thanks.
Have you, Miss Van Zandt, finished that new will?
We sure have. It's all ready for Mr. Starkweather's signature. I see you calm down. I would have blamed you and hated you.
Hate you? I could never. I'd take the same position if I were in your shoes.
I'm sure you would, Jordan.
Aren't you, Minerva said, aren't you forgetting something though?
What?
The little guy's going to need a father figure. A father figure. Someone to mold and bend him to the shape of great Uncle Simon. A heartless, money-making machine.
You think so?
I know so. And who would be a better father figure than I? You're a very attractive woman, Kathy. Let's mix business with pleasure.
Take your crummy hands off me.
What?
You're getting cookie crumbs on my blouse. And by the way, forget it. If I decide little Simon needs a father figure after he's born, I'll choose a suitable husband then. I don't know who he'll be, but he won't be a sleazy, money-hungry slimeball like you, Jordan.
I could kill you, you witch!
I would have tried that if I were you, not with a detective in the house. Aren't you finished in here yet?
I need to make everything all right.
Well, hurry up, girl. Minerva wants you in the kitchen.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't dawdle. Someone let the patio door open. I'll close it. Miss Thompson,
Mrs. Trent, you gave me a fright.
I suppose I should be grateful you didn't shoot me. What on earth are you doing? Roaming the house in the middle of the night with a gun in your hand.
Oh, don't worry. I know how to handle a gun. I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd clean it. I was going down to the kitchen to look for some oil.
Doubt you'll find what you need in there unless you want to run away with Crisco. Do you often carry that thing around with you?
Oh, I take it everywhere I go. Daddy taught me to be a crack shot when I was 10. A girl can't be too careful.
Well, I don't think you have anything to worry about. It's Starkweather Mansion. It's miles from here to town, and no one ever comes out this way.
You've never had a burglary or a prowler?
No.
Well, it's a wonder since Great Uncle Simon's so sick and all that someone hasn't tried to steal something. With his bedroom being on the ground floor, anybody could just break in those patio doors, walk right in his room, and do who knows what.
Like shoot him?
Well, it could happen, as terrible as that thought is. In his condition, how can he defend himself?
Because sick Nurse Withers on them, I suppose. That should frighten away any intruders.
Oh, you're just awful. But you know what? I won't want to tangle with one. Where does she sleep?
In the room beyond Mr. Starkweather, so she can hear him if he rings his bell for him in the night.
Well, if I remember correctly, Mama brought me here once when I was a little girl. That room used to be the library, and the one beyond it was the party. Am I right?
That's correct. When Mr. Starkweather became too ill to go up and down the stairs, the library was converted into a bedroom for him, and Withers took the parlor.
So they're the only ones who sleep downstairs?
Yes, the servants' quarters in the attic, under the eaves. We have our own staircase from the kitchen. Why do you ask?
Oh, I'm just curious.
Excuse me, folks. I thought that little section of dialogue was kind of awkward and suggested to Mr. St. John that he cut it. But he felt you needed to get an idea of the layout of the house. He said, "What do you want me to do? Put a blueprint of Starkweather Mansion in the program?" Which I thought was kind of rude. He insisted I leave it in, so I did. But it's a bad piece of writing, and I wanted you to know that I tried to correct it. Sorry for the interruption. Continue.
I want you to know that if you do that again, you're going to have to bring that script up on the stage and play Mrs. Trent yourself.
Sorry.
That was great. I wish I had your room.
So, you're curious about the layout of the house, are you?
Oh yeah, I'm just curious.
Well, you know what they say, curiosity killed the cat.
Yes, well, if you'll excuse me.
Wouldn't it be ironic if someone did break in tonight, of all nights?
Miss Starkweather? Ma'am, might I ask what kind of pills you just strewed about the room?
Digitalis for my heart. I have a heart condition. Maybe I should take 2.
Digitalis. Doesn't that speed up one's heart rate?
Oh yes, my little heart's just pumping away.
Then perhaps a single dosage will be sufficient. I assume an overdose could be fatal?
Extremely fatal. Or am I being redundant? I suppose fatal's fatal, just like dead is dead. Don't you agree?
Completely. One cannot be deader than someone else. Dead longer, perhaps, but that is the only comparison that comes to mind. Might I inquire why you brought the medication into the living room?
Why? Well, that's a very good question. Why did I bring them down here? Oh, I was going to see if Miss Withers had any free samples. I like to keep a supply handy.
But it looks as if your bottle was full already.
It was, but it never hurts to plan ahead. I had better pick them up.
Allow me to assist you.
Bensonhurst, can I ask you a question?
Be my guest.
Why are you carrying a wrench?
A wrench? Well, you see, I happen to remember that Miss Withers mentioned that the gas heater, Mrs. Starkweather's room, was a little loose. I figured I'd go give her an extra crack or 2, just to be sure.
How mechanical of you. We wouldn't want any of that to leak into his room, would we?
Well, naturally not, but first things first, shall we?
I feel like pigeons catching popcorn.
You missed one there.
Where?
By your left knee. Left knee.
Got it. They roll just everywhere.
Round objects tend to do that now.
Miss Withers,
Oh, Mrs. Starkweather, what are you doing on the floor with Bensonhurst?
picking up spilled pills. I dropped my digitalis. Please watch where you put your feet, my dear. Both of them.
I assume Mr. Starkweather has required an injection. Is there a problem?
Nothing I can't handle. His lungs seem to be somewhat congested, so I took him from his bed and placed him back in his wheelchair. He can breathe easier in an upright position. Then I gave him an injection of steroids to open his bronchial passages.
My, where would Uncle Simon be without you?
Dead. Without me, his heart would have stopped beating long ago.
Speaking of which, wasn't there something you wanted to ask Miss Withers, madam?
What's that?
The digitalis.
Oh, right. Miss Withers, I was wondering if you had any free manufacture samples of digitalis. I like to keep a supply handy.
Can see why you would. Yours tend to run out pretty quickly, don't they? Well, I'm sorry, Mrs. Starkweather. I am fresh out of spare drugs. Your uncle requires every pill he's got to keep him going.
Oh, dear. Then I guess we better pick mine up. Will you help us?
I suppose.
Is this a private game, or can anybody join?
Mr. Davis, we're picking up spilled pills.
Is that it? I thought you were holding a tiny little marble tournament. I'll pass.
Let me give you these, Mrs. Starkweather. I really must return to my duties.
And here are mine.
Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
If you'll excuse me.
Miss Withers, how's the boss?
bossy. He sent me for a pitcher of fresh drinking water, and if I'm not back in a minute, he'll start ringing that bell. See what I mean? I'll be right there, Mr. Starkweather.
I gather he rings for you a lot.
Incessantly. When he stops ringing that bell, I'll know he's kicked the bucket. Excuse me.
Spoken like a true member of the medical profession. What's with the wrench, Bensonhurst? Got a problem I can give you a hand with?
Thank you, sir, but no. It can wait. I too shall excuse myself.
Well,
You're up kind of late, Mrs. Starkweather.
I couldn't sleep. What about you, Mr. Davis?
Oh, I'm a real night owl. Besides, I was hoping young Simon Starkweather would show up. I haven't met him yet.
Simon's a nice young boy. I do hope he's right. All right, though. With the storm and all, I mean.
You could have pulled off to let it pass. It is getting a little cloudy again. We could be in for another deluge.
Oh, dear, I hope not. I guess I should go upstairs and lie down now.
Good night again, Mrs. Starkweather.
Good night.
I'm coming, Mr. Starkweather. Oh, you're still here.
Yeah, just keeping an eye on things.
I see. Well, my patient.
You're up too, Mr. Davis?
Yeah, apparently I'm not the only one. It seems to me like more traffic goes to the Starkweather mansion at midnight than goes down the interstate at rush hour.
I know what you mean. I've been hearing footsteps go past my bedroom door all evening. I'm not surprised, though. We could have guessed that Mr. Starkweather's announcement would give his heirs a sleepless night or two.
Between us, Miss Van Zandt, this cloning business, how do you feel about it?
I'm a lawyer, Mr. Davis. I'm paid to think, not feel. Can Mr. Starkweather be cloned? Definitely. There's no question that technology exists. Should he be cloned? Let's just say I wouldn't want to be the first to challenge nature by creating another Lois Van Zandt.
Me too. I'm a simple guy. I've got enough to worry about in one lifetime. Sooner we get the signing over with, we can go back to the real world, the better.
The new will is finished. Mr. Starkweather can sign it first thing in the morning.
The old boy's still awake. That nurse is in here a minute ago. I heard him ringing his bell for her.
In that case, there's no reason he can't sign it now.
That's what I'm thinking. The people here seem to be as tense as a bunch of long-tailed cats in a room full of rocking chairs. I know I'll sleep easier once the will is signed.
I'll go up to my room and get the will. Why don't you let Mr. Starkweather know? What in the world?
The circuit breaker must have tripped.
But the storm passed hours ago.
I know. I don't like this. I don't like this one bit. I'll go find Bensonhurst and have him show me where the main breaker is.
Good. I'll let Mr. Starkweather know we're taking care of it.
Tools of the trade.
It's all right, Mr. Starkweather. Up! Mr. Starkweather!
Hello? Is anyone in here? Miss Trent? Bensonhurst? Anybody?
Kathy, I think there's something wrong with Mr. Starkweather.
Oh no! He hasn't signed the will yet, has he?
No, perhaps he just fainted. We need light. Mr. Davis is trying to.
Ah!
Mr. Starkweather!
What happened? Someone struck me.
It's Mr. Starkweather! Help him!
What happened? What's going on? I heard a scream.
He's dead. Somebody put the blood pressure cuff around his neck and pumped it up to the maximum. 300 millimeters of mercury. Mr. Starkweather has been strangled to death.
Poor Mr. Starkweather would have done such a thing.
Oh, give me a break. I'd say you and just about everyone else in this room are right up there in the top 10 list.
How dare you?
Keep it down, keep it down. Let me check the body.
Those drops on his robe. Is it blood?
I'm not sure.
What else could it be?
I'll handle it. I'm the detective, remember? What can you tell us, Miss Withers?
After I brought him his pitcher of water and made sure he was breathing all right, I went back to my room and lied down across my bed. A few moments later, the lights went out.
I noticed that too.
He started ringing his bell for me. I was lighting a candle to go check on him when someone struck me with a heavy object. I must have blacked out. When I came to, the lights were on.
Yeah, we can take it from there.
You seem to be in charge, Mr. Davis. What do we do now?
We keep trying the phones. If the lines aren't out by morning, someone will have to drive into town and report there's been a murder at Starkweather Mansion.
Murder?
Maybe the old man did himself in. Or maybe not.
Young Mr. Simon, you made it! And boy, do we have a surprise for you.
Wasn't that the most diabolical murder you ever saw? Don't you just love it? The way Mr. St. John's mind works? It's no wonder you went bonkers. Now remember, first thing during intermission, we need you to get your ballot from your program and mark the suspect you think murdered Simon Starkweather. There's a ballot box in the lobby and in here as well, in case any of you don't need to go for a drink of water or anything. Well, see you in 15 minutes. For the character that the majority voted for as the murderer. Lines or actions that are clues to the character's identity. The cast will work these into the show. I just wanted you to know so that you can continue to play armchair detective and try and guess the culprit's identity. Well, I guess that's everything for now. Relax and enjoy the conclusion of Murders in the Air.
Lights. Dead. I can't believe grandfather is dead.
Well, he is Simon. He's the deadest person I ever saw.
Funny you should mention that. Bensonhurst and I were talking about the degrees of death earlier.
And he was murdered.
No doubt about it. You saw the body.
Poor grandfather. If I'd gotten here sooner, maybe...
How do we know you didn't get here sooner?
What?
For all we know, you could have arrived hours ago. Parked your car out of sight, slipped into the house, and killed the lights moments before you killed Simon Starkweather.
That's ridiculous. Why would I kill him?
I'd say a third of a $50 billion fortune's a good enough reason to knock somebody off. Your grandfather lived to sign that new will.
But I didn't know anything about the new will. I wasn't here when grandfather revealed that crazy lunatic cloning scheme you told me about.
Would have been easy enough to stand outside the patio doors and eavesdrop on the conversation.
Why would I hide? I was expected here. I told you what happened.
Tell me again.
Okay, all right. I had to creep along at a snail's pace on the long country road from town. Rain was lashing the windshield so hard I could barely see. The wind was snapping branches off trees and flinging them against the car. It was like driving through a hurricane. When I got to the bridge that spans the stream that runs around the estate, I had to stop. The river had turned into a raging river, and it had torn the bridge to pieces. I remembered a tree about a mile from where the bridge was that I used to play on when I was a kid. I found the tree and managed to walk across it, even though the rising water had nearly covered the trunk. Apparently I got here just after grandfather was murdered.
Good story and all, but it sounds rehearsed.
Yeah, not nearly enough. It's the truth, I swear.
I'm still not taking you off my suspect list.
And just who else do you have on that list, Mr. Davis?
Everyone in this room except Miss Van Zandt and Miss Collins. They had a heck of a lot to gain after grandfather lived to sign that will. As it turns out, they're left out in the cold.
Especially me. Lois has other clients, but now I'm among the unemployed.
I'm sure once the estate is settled, we can arrange for you to be given a generous severance check.
Take it out of your own portion if you'd like. Mother and I will pass.
So will I. Nothing personal, of course.
Of course.
Mike, what do we do now, Mr. Davis?
Simon's story reminds me. We could play a game of bridge.
The way I see it, we sit tight until daybreak. Then I'll have you show me the way to your car and drive me into town. I'll report what I know to the police and notify them that the bridge is out. My guess is the cops will fly in by helicopter. They need to get the body to the coroner's office, examine the crime scene, and take everyone's statements. As soon as a homicide detective is assigned to the case, I'm out of here.
But you're a detective too, and you were right here when the murder occurred. You have a better chance of solving the murder than anyone else.
Sorry, now that Mr. Starkweather's dead, I'm off the payroll. Once I give the big boys my statement, I'm going home.
I'll hire you to stay. I won't have the money to pay you till I get my portion of the inheritance, but if you're willing to wait...
You're on, kid. I figure you're good for the dough. Incidentally, that offer dropped you to the bottom of my suspect list. Well, might as well start earning my salary.
How can we help, Mr. Davis?
First, I want to question everyone as to their whereabouts when Mr. Starkweather was murdered.
Establish everyone's alibis.
Right. I also need to know anything you and the staff might have seen or heard during that time frame, which might help us identify the killer.
Clues.
Right. Clues, motives, and alibis. The motives in this case are obvious. The other elements not so much, but hopefully they will be by the time I'm done.
Sounds like a good plan to me. Whom would you like to start with?
How about you, Miss Thompson? You mind going first?
I'm awful tired, but if I have to...
You don't have to. None of us do.
What do you mean, dear?
I mean, Mike here isn't a policeman. We don't have to tell him the time of day.
You're right, Jordan. But where would you choose to cooperate unless you had something to hide?
Now don't start accusing me of murder unless you can prove it.
Simon does have a point. Do you want me to tell the police that everyone cooperated except you?
Fine, I'll answer your stupid questions. But first, I'm going to take Mother upstairs. She is getting up in the years and needs her beauty rest.
Why, thank you, Jordan. I'm no spring chicken anymore, but I'm not Miss Methuselah either.
Now don't get excited. You need your digit towels?
No, but I'm sure if I did, there's still a few under the sofa. I had a little accident with my pill bottle.
Come on. If you need us, we'll be upstairs.
I assume you'll want to question everyone in private. You can wait with me in my room if you like, Kathy. I want to read over the old will since it will remain the official one.
Sure, Lois. Excuse us.
I'd like to stay. Since I wasn't here earlier, hearing everyone's statements would give me a clearer picture of what happened tonight at Starkweather Mansion.
You're the boss now. I'm particularly interested in what happened between the time frame that Mr. Starkweather announced the changing of his will and the time his body was discovered.
How long was that?
Several hours. Well, Miss Thompson, did you happen to notice anything suspicious in that time frame that might help us?
Well, I was very disappointed by Great Uncle Simon's announcement, as you might as well imagine. I mean, I can understand why you'd want to call him Tom Cruise, but Great Uncle Simon? No offense, Cousin Simon, but your grandfather was not a very nice person.
None taken.
Anyway, I spent most of that time up in my room, but I did come downstairs once on a little errand. I was outside the kitchen door when I heard Minerva and that cute little maid Nancy talking.
What's the matter with you, girl? Did you leave your mind in the other room? You haven't heard a word I've said.
I'm sorry, Minerva. I'm just so confused.
About what? Is that no good scamp Jordan bothering you?
Mr. Starkweather, what makes you think that?
When I walked in on you two in the living room, you were standing mighty close together, all lovey-dovey like. What was he saying to you?
I think he wanted me to
do something you didn't want to do?
Yes, but it's not what you're thinking.
I bet. He better stay away from you. If he tries anything, I'll cut him down to size.
Minerva, no. He's not interested in me. I heard him talking to Miss Collins.
I get the picture. When you lost your million, he lost interest in you, didn't he? He's following that money right along to that Collins girl, isn't he?
He proposed to her. She laughed at him.
Good for her. Serves him right, that lazy bum.
Don't call him that.
You're hung up on him, aren't you? Don't be a fool, Nancy. He'll just use you and toss you aside like he's done a dozen other girls I know of.
Maybe he's ready to settle down now. If it hadn't been for Mr. Starkweather changing his will, he'd be free to...
Free to do what?
Nothing. If we're done here, I'll go in my room now.
Go on. Nancy?
Yes, ma'am?
Lock your door.
Excuse me. That little scene was a flashback. Showed a conversation Paula overheard before the murder. The other characters' stories, well, portions of them, will be shown in flashbacks too. Isn't that clever? Just wanted to make sure you got that. That's all.
That man is really asking for it.
Mrs. Trent, did you happen to notice anything suspicious earlier?
Suspicious? Well, I suppose you called putting a gun around the house suspicious, even though Mr. Starkweather wasn't shot to death.
A gun? Who has a gun?
Besides me.
Paula Thompson, that's who. Claims she's a regular Annie Oakley. She even mentioned how easy it would be for somebody to come through the patio door and kill Mr. Starkweather.
Did she know?
Ask her yourself.
Anything else?
I did happen to overhear a rather odd conversation between Rufus and Mrs. Starkweather. I had gone upstairs to distribute candles to everyone in case of a power outage, which turned out to be very useful, as you know. I was about to turn the corridor onto the west wing when I saw Mrs. Starkweather at the far end, in the stairs.
Oh dear, do I have enough?
Miss Starkweather?
Rufus, you scare me out of year's growth.
That's okay, ma'am. At our age, we seem to do all our growing sideways, don't we?
I certainly hope not. What are you doing with that television set? It doesn't look like a portable.
It is now. I borrowed it from one of the guest rooms.
Whatever for?
Well, you see, the set in my room, it ain't working so good. The color, I mean. Every damn channel is green. Judge Judy is green. Kim Kardashian is green. Even Gordon Ramsay is green. It looks like every channel is starring Kermit the Frog.
How disconcerting.
You can say that again. Whatever it means. I see you still... Are them breath mints? I wouldn't mind if you after that crowd during service for supper.
Oh no, Rufus, you mustn't take any of these. These are for my heart. If you were to take any of these, they could kill you.
In that case, I'll pass. You might not want to leave them lying around here anywhere, in the case of somebody eating a bunch and killing them dead.
That's entirely possible.
What would you put on their death certificate? Cause of death, bad breath.
This isn't a laughing matter. I'll be careful with them. I need these pills, you see. I need every one of them.
Rufus had an axe in the house?
Yes, Master Simon. I had ordered him to chop some firewood earlier.
I'm surprised you trust him with an axe.
Personally, I wouldn't trust him with a butter knife. I was simply relaying Mr. Starkweather's orders.
Was there anything else of interest you happen to notice, Mr. Bensonhurst?
Well, just one, sir. Earlier tonight, I was coming up from the kitchen when I saw Master Jordan at the room for Mr. Starkweather's door. His behavior was somewhat furtive. I got the impression he was going to enter when Miss Withers came out. It was apparent her unexpected appearance startled Master Jordan.
Well, what do you want?
I was just going to confirm with Uncle Simon.
No need. That's what I'm paid to do.
How is he?
Still breathing, if that's what you're wondering about.
Miss Withers, how much longer do you think he has left to live?
Let's just say he needn't start reading any long novels. Or even a short story.
But you think he'll make it through the night?
I think Mr. Starkweather will keep his heart beating through sheer determination, long enough to sign that new will. That's what you want to know, isn't it?
Why, Miss Withers? You misjudge me.
Give it a rest, Jordan. You'd love to see him drop dead tonight, just like nearly everyone else in this house.
Including you. You get a fortune if you drop dead tonight.
If that's a hint, forget it. As Mr. Starkweather's nurse, I'd be the prime suspect if his death appeared to be anything but by natural causes.
Suspecting and proving are two very different things.
I'm gonna forget you said that. Good night, Jordan. It's true. Jordan Starkweather did hint that I was in a position to end his radical life. I also assume Bensonhurst told you I refused.
He did, but you could have changed your mind.
And then killed him with a blood pressure cuff? That would have been foolish. Hardly what you call by natural causes.
I agree. The manner in which Mr. Starkweather was murdered wasn't very smart, whoever did it.
It's as if the killer was flaunting it in our faces.
Why would they do that?
Good question. If you had to pick a likely suspect to have murdered Mr. Starkweather, who would it be?
Off the record, that Thompson girl, his great niece, is too goody-goody for my taste. Oh, those southern girls can pour on the charm whenever they want, but Scarlett O'Hara was pretty ruthless when you get down to it.
We've been told Cousin Paula has a gun.
See what I mean? I think her and Jordan were just trying to get their hands on Mr. Starkweather's billions. I heard them talking earlier this evening. It was right after Miss Van Zant's announcement about the new will. They didn't see me in the corridor.
Well, what are we gonna do?
What can we do? It's out of our hands.
Don't be such a wimp, Cousin Jordan. That money rightfully belongs to us. There has to be a way to get it.
Maybe we can get him declared insane.
I've thought of that, but it won't work. If clonus was such a wild theory, we probably could, but it isn't. It's been done. Great Uncle Simon's plan to clone himself might be bizarre, but it isn't insane. We'd lose the case.
Yeah, I'll spend our opinions on the lawyers.
Like that Miss Van Zant.
She what? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking if you can't beat him, join him.
What?
Fend for yourself, Cousin Jordan. I need to go talk to that lawyer.
can't beat 'em, join 'em.
Where could that Kathy be?
It's true. Jordan did suggest we get married. It wasn't what you call a romantic proposal. It was more like a business proposition.
You were going to have access to billions. What did Jordan have to offer you?
Himself, I guess. In my opinion, that fortune hunter wouldn't be worth 2 cents.
So you did turn him down.
Jordan is attractive in a smarmy sort of way, but any woman that would marry him would be a fool. And believe me, mate, I'm no fool.
I've known that since we first started corresponding.
You were smart enough to carry grandfather's clone.
Look, Simon, once Mr. Starkweather made up his mind to clone himself, nothing was going to change it. He would have found a surrogate mother somewhere else, so it might as well have been me.
I understand. I just think the whole idea was, well, creepy.
At least you're a lot nicer about it than the other heirs were.
For example?
Paula, for one. She hadn't given up hope on getting her hands on Mr. Starkweather's money.
How do you know?
I was in Lois's room with her when Paula knocked on the door. She asked Lois to step into the corridor so she could speak to her in private. Lois went out with her. She didn't close the door all the way, so I couldn't help but overhear their conversation.
We're very busy, Miss Thompson.
Preparing that new will?
Yes.
Miss Van Zandt, you're a lawyer. Are you sure this cloning business is legal? You could lose your license to practice, couldn't you, if...
The process will be performed in Belgium, as we told you. Our laws don't apply there.
What about ethics? Haven't lawyers been disbarred before for behavior that was unethical? If not illegal?
What's your client?
I want in on the deal. You can pay me from that trust fund to be the baby's nanny or whatever. I don't care what you call the position. If you refuse, I shall be forced to report you to the Bar Association. Isn't that what you call it?
It is. Let me give you a little free legal advice, Miss Thompson. In the first place, if you make any accusations against me before the cloning procedure has been completed successfully, I'll sue you for the $50,000 you're due to receive, and everything else you own, and I'll get it. In the second place, once the baby is on the way, I plan to close down my office. I shall devote all my time to Kathy and little Simon's care. At that point, it won't bother me in the least if I should be disbarred. You don't have to be a lawyer to administer an estate. Anyone can do it.
Oh.
So you see, young woman, your threats are meaningless. In fact, as an officer of the court, I should report your feeble attempts at extortion to the police.
I wasn't...
Save it. Take your silly southern self out of my sight, and I might be willing to forget it.
All right, I'll go. You lawyer?
Excuse me.
Yes, Miss Trent?
I found what's left of the Christmas candles I stored away. I thought it might be a good idea to pass them out in case of a power failure. I suggest you keep one and some matches nearby.
That's very thoughtful. Thank you. Kathy's in my room. I'll take one for her also.
Miss Thompson?
Oh, all right. I'm going to my room. There's something there I need to get.
What's the matter with her?
She's a poser. Miss Thompson played race and I trumped it in a manner of speaking. I'll give this to Kathy.
Now, if I remember correctly, Kathy Collins saw Mr. Starkweather's body and screamed. You ran in the front door. What had you been doing outside, Rufus?
Was I outside?
Yup, I guess I was. I remember now, I had just gotten a TV set from one of the guest rooms.
We heard why, Rufus.
You did? Man, news sure traveled fast around here.
All the actors on your set were green.
Sure was. Looked like the Martians had landed. Anyways, when I got the news set and hooked it up, picture it was all fuzzy like a woolly bird. So I went outside to see if I could turn the antenna around.
On the roof?
Well, it wouldn't do much good in the basement, now would it? Anyways, I was just about to get the tall ladder out of the shed when I heard the girl scream bloody murder. Well, murder, even if it wasn't bloody.
When you were outside, did you see or hear anything?
I saw an owl and heard a bunch of bullfrogs.
I meant humans.
I did see Mr. Jordan on the way in through the patio. Don't know what he was doing out there.
Earlier tonight, Rufus, did you hear anyone talking about the new will?
Who didn't? Oh, Bensonhurst and Minerva didn't talk about much else. They was going on about it in the kitchen.
What were
Before
they
Mr. Starkweather croaked.
What were they saying?
That it ain't fair, that's what. They've worked all their lives for Mrs. Starkweather, and they deserve their millions. Me, I didn't care too much. I figured $50,000 buy me a nice big TV. Now I think I might even get two.
Best nurse in Minerva.
Oh yeah, the more Minerva thought about it, the madder she got. And whew, that woman has got a temper.
You mustn't go in there, Minerva.
Who's gonna stop me?
I shall if necessary.
You and whose army?
Look, I totally agree with you that we are wrong, but a confrontation is not the answer.
Oh yeah? Then what is?
Just have patience. Maybe he'll change his mind by morning.
We should live so long.
No, Minerva. He should live so long.
What had you been doing outside at the time of the murder, Mr. Starkweather?
Just getting a breath of fresh air. Anything wrong with that?
Not if you remained outside.
What are you trying to say?
When I made a cursory examination of Mr. Starkweather's room, I noticed that Miss Withers had left his window open just a few inches. To let in some of that fresh air would have been easy enough for someone to slip in and...
Are you accusing me of murdering Uncle Simon?
Calm down, Mr. Starkweather. I'm not accusing anybody yet.
Besides, from what we've heard, Cousin Jordan, it seems that trying to con someone else into doing your bidding is more your style.
And who told you that?
I'll ask the questions, if you don't mind. I repeat, what had you been doing outside?
If you must know, Kathy and I got into a little disagreement. I blew up and I went outside to cool off. Or have you already heard?
I question. You answer. Remember, let me ask you this. If you didn't kill Mr. Starkweather, who do you think did?
I'm not saying she did, but have you talked to that little maid Nancy?
Why her, Cousin Jordan?
The girl has a crush on me. I know I flirt with the ladies a lot, but I did nothing to lead her on. I was outside the kitchen door when I heard Nancy talking to Miss Withers.
Can I do something for you, Miss Withers?
I needed fresh water to put by Mr. Starkweather's bedside. I got it.
That poor man, when he had the attack and lost his breath in the living room earlier, I realized what you meant before when you said the smallest shock proved to be fatal.
Exactly.
The slightest shock. His bell.
I must go.
Yes, we wouldn't want to think it happened to him, would we? I was shocked to be told that Mr. Starkweather had included me in his will. I didn't even think he noticed I existed.
So you must have received two surprises. First, to be told you'd be receiving a fortune. And next, to hear it was being immediately taken away from you.
3, actually. Now you're wealthy again.
Oh, Mr. Starkweather, I was pleased to be told that your grandfather would be giving me $50,000. With that, I go to college, like you, and get a good education.
Now you can do anything you want, Nancy. What do you want to do?
I don't know. I haven't think about myself much.
Who has been on your mind, Nancy?
I...
Jordan Starkweather, perhaps? You're quite fond of him, aren't you?
Who told you that?
Cousin Jordan himself, for one. Well, he implied you might even have been willing to kill for him.
What? How could he say such a thing?
I'm sorry to hurt you, Nancy, but now you see what Jordan's really like. He's out for himself, and he'll trample anyone who gets in his way.
I guess I knew that. Minerva tried to warn me. I even heard him propose to Mrs. Collins, but she rejected him, then later laughed about it when she was telling her friend Miss Van Zandt. I was taking fresh towels to the guest rooms later when I heard them talking. You think Jordan is cold-hearted? Well, Mrs. Collins is just as bad as he is.
Can you believe it? Those soulful gazes might work on an innocent young thing like that maid Nancy, but he learned quick enough that I'm no pushover.
I wish I had been there to see it. It's time Jordan met his match. I could tell Nancy about some of the maids who worked here before her. His Playboy days will be over soon enough, though.
What do you mean?
Up until now, Mr. Starkweather has given Jordan, as well as Fiona, Paula, and young Simon, a generous allowance. Once he passes on, the $50,000 bequest will be the last they get of the Starkweather fortune. They'll have to learn what it's like to work for a living.
Simon's almost out of school. He'll be fine. But the others, they'll go through their money in no time. Then what kind of jobs can they get? Can you picture Paula behind the desk of a car rental agency?
Or Jordan driving cars out of the lot for customers?
And what will Fiona do? Sell Avon?
Can I get anything for you, Cousin Fiona? A glass of water, maybe?
No, thank you, dear. I'm fine. Mr. Davis, I can assure you that my Jordan couldn't have done... Oh, dear. What was done? To Uncle Simon. He was with me in my room all night.
Now, Mrs. Starkweather, you know that can't be true. Jordan himself told us he was outside earlier, and I saw you with Bensonhurst and Miss Withers in here.
Oh, that's right. Maybe that was last night you sat with me in my room.
Maybe it was.
Now I know why Jessica Fletcher never believed the suspects on Murder, She Wrote. It's just so easy to get confused.
Concentrate on the fact, Mrs. Starkweather. Do you recall seeing anything suspicious?
Suspicious? Well, I saw Uncle Simon's body with a horrible thing around his neck. I'd call that suspicious.
Cousin Fiona, Mr. Davis means before.
Before? Let me think. I don't know if this is the kind of thing you mean, but...
Yeah?
It was right after we were told about the new will and it all gone upstairs. I was walking past that secretary's door when I heard her and the housekeeper inside. They were talking quite loudly, so I couldn't help but overhear.
What are you doing in my room, Mrs. Trent?
I was checking all the guest rooms to make sure there are extra blankets in each. I suppose you're very pleased with yourself, Miss Collins.
Why do you say that?
It all worked out just as you had planned.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think you do. I understand now why you left all those magazines from town and left them lying around where Mr. Starkweather would see them. You've done it for months now.
What magazines?
Don't play dumb. Those news magazines and scientific journals. I've seen them, and they all had one thing in common. Articles about cloning. I didn't realize it until tonight, but now it's obvious what you're doing. You planned the idea in Mr. Starkweather's head to clone himself.
And what if I did? There's no laws against sharing ideas, are there?
I'm sure your lawyer friend would say no, since you're in this together. That doesn't mean it's right. I think what you're planning to do is disgusting.
To be perfectly frank, I couldn't care less what you think. Get out!
Starting to give orders already, are you? I'll leave. But remember one thing, old lady. You are not the queen bee yet. And you won't be until Mr. Starkweather's name is on the dotted line. Assuming that ever happens.
Kathy told me about Miss Trent's accusations, that she engineered the cloning business, possibly with my help. Apparently, Mrs. Starkweather reported their conversation accurately, which is something of a surprise.
Is it true? Did you and Kathy give grandfather the idea to clone himself?
I don't think that's relevant to the case at hand, Simon. Even if we did, we weren't breaking any laws. Don't you agree, Mr. Davis?
No laws that I can think of.
Then shouldn't we focus on the law that was broken? I'm referring to the murder, of course.
You are right, as usual, Ms. Van Zandt. Can you volunteer any information that might help us?
I will tell you this. Earlier this evening, I went to the kitchen to ask Minerva for a pot of coffee. It was apparent that Kathy and I were going to be working late, and I thought the caffeine might help us stay awake. Minerva wasn't there, but Rufus was. I heard him talking to Fiona Starkweather. The conversation was very peculiar.
Good heavens, Rufus, what are you doing with that axe?
I brought it from the wood pile, dried off real good, chopping it up real nice, you see?
Goodness, no, put it away.
I probably should, before it hurts somebody, or even kills them.
That's a horrible thought.
I know, I get those sometimes.
Hey,
I I see you still got your poison pills.
Digitalis isn't a poison. It's a stimulant. You just have to be careful not to take too many.
You had a lot more in that bottle I saw you upstairs. Oops, I hope you haven't got an overdose. I think I can figure out that mouse stuff.
You bring those lips any closer and I'll snatch that axe out of your hands and chop them off.
Just trying to help me, Starkweather.
Well, don't. Some fates are worse than death. I can assure you, though, that I am fine. I dropped a few pills under the sofa earlier and wasn't able to pick them all up.
I sure hope not. She's mighty angry at him right now.
What are you suggesting?
Oh, nothing. Was there something that you needed in the kitchen?
Well, I was looking for Minerva to see if she had any more of those lovely hors d'oeuvres left over.
I can look.
No thanks. I seem to have lost my appetite.
Mr. Starkweather's meals? What do you want to know about them?
Who did he dine with? Did he eat the same food as everyone else?
Mr. Starkweather was on a very strict diet. Low salt, low fat, so I had to prepare his meals separately. Why do you ask? You think there's something wrong with my cooking?
No, ma'am. That leg of lamb you served last night was terrific.
Yes, well, I've often been told I have terrific legs. So what's the problem?
Nothing. Forget it. You told me what I need to know. Changing the subject, do you happen to remember who was in the kitchen earlier when the lights went out? Before I got there, I mean.
The blackout? I'm not sure. Let me think. I was in the pantry checking the supplies for breakfast. When it went dark, it took me a moment to get the candle out of my pocket and light it.
Minerva? Nancy? Is everyone all right?
I'm here, and I'm fine.
I was in my room when the lights went out. What happened?
Basically, forgot to pay the light bill.
Keep that up and don't forget to pay your wage.
What in blazes is going on?
I guess the storm knocked out the electricity. My candles did come in handy, you see.
Remind me to give you a gold star later. Bensonhurst, can't you get the electricity back on?
That's what I came to find out. Mr. Bensonhurst?
The circuit breaker is right over there.
I hope they hurry. I don't like the dark.
That quick enough for you? I'll get back.
Why do you have to come inside? You dropped water all over my clean floors.
Why Mr. Starkweather doesn't fire him, I'll never know.
Any luck?
Yeah, it was there, all right. It should be enough to pinpoint a murderer, but I wish we had more. It could take weeks to get the results. If the will is probated before then, and the killer gets his or her inheritance, they could disappear for good. You can buy a new identity easy enough for $1 million or more. I wish there was some way we could nab the guilty party tonight.
I was hoping we'd learn more from questioning the suspects.
Me too. They were so busy trying to make each other look guilty, they didn't really reveal much about themselves. Sometimes the slightest... Simon, move your feet.
What is it?
Here, on the rug. I think it's... Yes. What they were doing was so insignificant, I hardly noticed it at the time. Simon, I know who murdered your grandfather.
Who?
I'll tell everyone as soon as I gather the evidence. Go find Bensonhurst and tell him I need to see everyone in here immediately.
Yes, sir!
Minerva sent me in here to see if you'd like a pot of coffee.
Never mind that. Go upstairs and tell everyone there to get down here on the double.
Yes, sir.
I don't think the police chief will mind if I use sandwich bags to collect evidence. I don't think he'll mind at all. Calm down, everybody. Please, please, take a seat.
It's very late, Mr. Davis. Or very early, depending on how you look at it. If no one else is going to ask, I will. Why did you call us all together at this hour?
It is quite late, isn't it? I'm sure you're all very tired. I know I am. But I figured you'd rest easier knowing who killed Simon Starkweather.
You mean you've discovered who killed him?
I believe I have, as I'm going to show you in the next few minutes.
I'm amazed, Mike. How did you figure it out?
First, I had to find the answer to a question that had bothered me from the beginning. It would have been easy enough to make it appear as though Mr. Starkweather died of natural causes, a suggestion Jordan made to Miss Withers earlier. Mr. Starkweather or her son could have given him some of her digitalis to trigger a heart attack, as could many of you who were aware she had spilled a few of them on the floor in here earlier. Miss Withers could have achieved the same result by injecting an air bubble into his bloodstream with a hypodermic needle. Again, any of you could have done this by stealing a needle from her room. It's also highly probable that some of you considered frightening the old man to death. Bensonhurst with his wrench, Miss Thompson with her gun, Minerva with her knife, or Rufus with his axe. The possibilities are endless. So why then would the killer choose to put a blood pressure cuff around his neck and strangle him until he died? The answer was so simple, I feel foolish for not realizing sooner it must have really happened.
You might want to ask what that is.
Obviously, when the blood pressure cuff was put around his neck, Mr. Starkweather was already dead.
What?
Isn't that right, Miss Van Zandt?
You really are very clever.
It had to have been you. We were in here together when the lights went out. Mr. Starkweather began to ring his bell. I went to find Bensonhurst, and you went to check on Mr. Starkweather. His killer must have murdered the man and slipped into Miss Withers' room seconds before you found the body.
That's what I figured too.
But why would you put a cuff around his neck?
As our able detective here has surmised, the murderer made it appear as though Mr. Starkweather had had a heart attack. Death seemed to have in that case been due to natural causes. I knew that someone in this house had killed him. I knew that under the circumstances, the coroner would have no reason to perform an autopsy on the body, nor would the police conduct an investigation. I wasn't about to let my employer's murderer get away scot-free. I noticed the blood pressure cuff on his bed and inflated it before wheeling him into this room.
And your plan worked. No one would question the fact that he had been murdered.
So young Simon hired Mr. Davis to find the killer.
Which I have. That was very naughty of you, Miss Van Zandt. For a while there, your little ploy distracted me from the main problem. Instead of wondering who did it, I kept wondering why did they do it that way. Once I solved that piece of the puzzle, the rest came easy.
Sorry, Mr. Davis, but if you've discovered the killer's identity, then the ends seem to have justified the means.
I'm sure the police will agree, and they might even be willing to overlook the fact that you're guilty of tampering with evidence at the crime scene.
If not, I'm on very good terms with the local justice.
Wait, how do we know she didn't kill him herself?
No motive.
Oh, yeah.
Don't keep us in suspense, Mike. Tell us who did kill Mr. Starkweather.
I'll do better than that. I'll show you. Bear with me. Please, stay seated.
What?
I'm sure you will still have the candles that Mrs. Trent distributed earlier in case of a blackout. Take them out, please, and light them.
Ooh, isn't this nice? Very Christmassy.
When I examined Mr. Starkweather's body, I found what I first thought were a few drops of blood on his bathrobe. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be another substance entirely. I forgot about it for the moment. While I was interrogating you individually, I noticed one of you scraping one thumbnail against the other. At the time, I took it to be a nervous gesture. I guess you could say it was nerves triggered by guilt, as it turns out. I didn't realize the significance of this gesture until I recalled Minerva's testimony. She reminded me of those of you who gathered in here with candles earlier when the lights went out. A few minutes ago, I noticed these on the floor by the sofa, and I had the link I needed to identify the murderer. Thin scrapings of red tallow. Tallow from the killer's thumbnail. Tallow from the red candle the killer was holding when he murdered Simon Starkweather. Tallow from the one red candle among you, which you are holding, Bensonhurst.
There could have been other red candles.
There aren't. I remember thinking when we took them down after Christmas that we'd have to buy more red ones for next year.
Is this the only evidence you have to offer the police? This candle?
No, Mr. Bensonhurst. I have better evidence than that. I just examined Mr. Starkweather's body. As I was walking around the room, I glanced at everyone's hands. I happened to notice several very thin scratches on your wrists, made by Mr. Starkweather, no doubt, as he struggled for his life. I'd be willing to bet my reputation that these skin samples I was able to scrape from his fingernails came from you. It would be easy enough to prove. I've met quite a few experts on DNA testing in the last 6 months.
Bravo, Mr. Davis.
Well?
I don't suppose you consider cloning those scrapings and putting the new me in prison, would you? I don't think so. Well, Miss Van Zandt, my biggest mistake was trying to cross a lawyer. I might have caused you to lose out on Mr. Starkweather's billions, but you definitely got your revenge.
Why don't you tell us what happened?
I might as well. You've already figured out the main details. I was furious with Mr. Starkweather for building up our hopes and then dashing them to the ground. I thought, a man that cruel doesn't deserve to live. I listened at the hallway door to his room until I was sure he was alone. When I went in, he was still awake in his wheelchair. I walked up to him, grabbed the bars on the wheelchair. I leaned right down in his face. I told him what he was doing was monstrous. I told him a man that cruel doesn't deserve to live. I told him I was going to kill him. He was terrified. He wheeled backwards in his chair. He slammed into the bedside table, sending the impact sent the reading lamp flying to the ground and the pitcher of water right on top of it. That's what caused the circuit breaker to blow.
So you didn't cause the blackout deliberately?
No, it almost ruined everything. But I still had the candle and matches. I managed to light it and hold it with one hand, while I grabbed the oxygen mask with the other. I clamped the mask down hard over his nose and mouth. He couldn't breathe, of course. He made a feeble attempt to fight back with one hand, while he rang that bell with the other. He wasn't able to do much, except a few scratches on my wrist. I'm sure that's when that caused me to spill the drops of red candle wax on his robe. I'm not sure if he died of suffocation or a heart attack, but it was over in seconds. The old man wasn't able to do much, but I guess it was enough to pin his murder on me.
And then?
I slipped through the connecting door to Miss Withers' room. She had just managed to get her candle lit. I grabbed the brass candlestick off of her drawer, or off of her bureau, and struck her over the head with it. She fell to the ground, and her candle went out. Then, I guess that's when you were turning my apparent natural death into an apparent murder, Miss Van Zandt. I slipped through the hallway door, and I heard Miss Collins scream and joined the rest of you in the living room.
You must have been just as shocked as everyone else to see the blood pressure cuff around Mr. Starkweather's neck.
I would have loved to kill you too, for ruining everything. But I didn't get the chance. Until now.
No!
Nobody moved.
Easy, you don't want to do something you might regret.
It's a little late for that advice, Mr. Davis. Get up. You're coming with me.
Where can we go? The bridge is washed out.
I remember that bridge, that log that Mr. Simon mentioned in his story earlier. Simon, put your keys on the table.
You'll never get away.
I think I might. All of your cars are on this side of the river. It'll take you hours to walk to town and notify the police. I'll be long gone by then.
What about me?
What do you think I'm going to do with you? I would have gotten away with a perfect murder and then for you.
Not a thing if I can help it.
Always keep these with me in case of emergency. You never know what calls will come in handy. Let's have it.
Mr. Davis, remind me to pay you a big bonus.
No problem. You're going to be spending a long time behind bars. What do you have to say for yourself?
I wonder if the warden could use a butler.
What a good job.
St. John. He says he just came to from a drug-induced coma, and when he awoke, a fantastic solution to the play was crystal clear. Oh my, really? Yes, it's brilliant. It's better than any of the possible conclusions he came up with before. You simply have to see it. It'll take a few minutes for me to go over the changes with the cast, but I'm sure they can handle it. Oh, I see some clues that need to go in the first act, so I guess we'll have to do the whole play again.